At On the Horn, we guarantee 60 minutes every hour. Or your money back. onthehorn.com.
Federal settlement requires hiring of 35 more state employees. Truckers complain of costs, want tax exemption. Cybersecurity threats, focus of new report. Senators warn of predatory tax filing services. Ex-governor's attorney, quote, "We're eager to go to trial," end quote. And the political roundup. As Rowland is indicted, Republicans seek to distance themselves. 5 of 6 Republican gubernatorial candidates debate last week. Republican candidates report fundraising totals. A Republican candidate wins special election. Knockout game bill heading to Senate. And 200,000 fans celebrate double championship. Good evening and welcome to the 123rd edition of News Talk Tonight. I'm Dave Moore, your host of News Talk Tonight. News Talk Tonight is brought to you by Amazon.com, Sanders Travel, Sherpa Technologies, Budwitz and Meyerjack CPAs, Deepwater Seafood of Avon, and CentralCTDental.com. Wherever you are on the World Wide Web, take us along with you. Thousands have listened. You can too on demand at iTunes, Stitcher, and of course, onthehorn.com. I also need to thank, as always, CTNewsJunkie.com, Doug Hardy and Christine Stewart for allowing me to use CTNewsJunkie.com as my primary news source, and frankly, there is no better news source in Connecticut than CTNewsJunkie.com. And now for the serious and silly 6 Connecticut news. Thanks to the Medicaid applications being processed too slowly, the New Haven Legal Assistance Group filed a federal lawsuit against the state of Connecticut in January 2012. Federal law requires that applications have to be processed within 45 days, but many Medicaid applicants had waited longer than that, prompting the suit. Last week, the state and the plaintiffs reached a settlement agreement, which will likely cost the state in excess of $2.5 million. And given the amount, the agreement has to be ratified by the state's General Assembly and certified by the Federal District Court, as it is a class action. The Connecticut Department of Social Services considers the settlement to be reasonable, and the current budget allows for the hiring of 17 positions to DSS. So the General Assembly would only have to agree to fund an additional 18 positions for a total of 35 new state workers working for DSS who would process the Medicaid applications. Attorney Sheldon Taubman, an attorney for the plaintiffs, believes that the settlement will improve the timeliness of the application processing, particularly with regard to long-term care applications, and that the settlement, by addressing all aspects of DSS operations, will help in all aspects of the application processing. Connecticut truckers believe that a sales tax of 6.3% on repairs is unfair, as it is the state's use of magnesium chloride on the roads in the wintertime that is leading to an increase in the need for truck repairs, and they are asking the state for a break in the tax as a result. The truckers contend that components like brake lines, parts of the trucks like in the truck undercarriages and the like have been wearing down and corroding thanks to the use of the snow retardant on the state's roadways during the winter months. Connecticut Governor Daniel P. Malloy is not convinced that the tax break is necessary, since the truck owners can depreciate the value of the trucks on an annual basis and also write off the cost of repairs as a tax deduction. Malloy has also suggested that putting on a protective coating could limit the amount of wear and tear that the trucks sustain for driving through the magnesium chloride. Michael Riley, the president of the Motor Transport Association, the organization leading the charge for the requested tax break, says there is no such coating available. Connecticut has been using liquid chemicals for road treatment in icy and snowy conditions since 2006, and it tried using a rust inhibitor in 2007, but found that the rust inhibitor was depleting oxygen levels in state streams, thereby posing a threat to aquatic life. The state legislature is looking to do a study, which, if approved by both houses and signed by the governor, would be completed before next winter. Why am I interested in this story tonight, you might ask? Because even though it is tax day, Connecticut is expecting a wintry mix later tonight. A report issued yesterday by the Public Utilities Authority finds that hostile probes and penetrations of utilities occurs frequently, and that thus far defense against such cyber attacks in Connecticut are adequate, but the security challenges are, quote, constantly evolving and becoming more sophisticated and nefarious, end quote. It is not clear how many times a person or an organization has tried to gain access to Connecticut's electric grid with malicious intent, but state officials are working with the utility companies in developing regulatory guidance. Connecticut Governor Daniel P. Malloy said that the state's computer system has fended off 40 million probes this last year. And as far as the governor is concerned, the most significant attack to any electrical utility was an assault on the Pacific Gas and Electric's California substation this last year, where telephone cables were cut and 17 transformers were shot out. A spokesman for Northeast Utilities, one of the main public utilities in Connecticut, says that the layered securities in the company's computer system have worked thus far, and the company stays in touch with third-party vendors to keep up to date on the evolving threats. The purpose of the Public Utilities Authority report was to review the need for the security systems for all of the state's utilities, with the desired result being that the utilities would voluntarily agree to do security audits and share the results with select state officials. The results of the audits would not be made public. As noted earlier, today is tax day, and hopefully you have or are about to file your tax returns by no later than midnight tonight. U.S. Senators Christopher Murphy and Richard Blumenthal, both Democrats of Connecticut, are warning taxpayers that there are unscrupulous tax preparers out there and that the IRS has no authority to protect the taxpayers or regulate the tax preparers. The problem is particularly bad, according to the senators, for moderate to low-income individuals who may be paying exorbitant fees to get refunds for using programs like the Earned Income Tax Credit. Apparently, the senators believe that paying between $400 and $500 for a tax preparer is too much, especially when the average refund is about $1,600. Anyone who makes less than $52,000 per year can use a program that is being run either by the Village for Families and Children or the United Way in Greater Hartford and Windham counties. The program, called Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, is free, so that the taxpayers could actually utilize all of their refund. And those that think that they might qualify for a refund but don't have all the necessary information can file for an extension by midnight tonight, and that way they would be able to file their return by no later than October 15th and still get their refund. So far, more than 6,500 working families have used the volunteer tax program, and it is estimated by the IRS that more than 147,000 Connecticut residents will be filing extension requests. Last Friday, the felonious ex-governor John G. Rowland pleaded not guilty to the 7-count indictment alleging campaign corruption charges in the U.S. District Court in New Haven, where his lawyers said that he plans to take the case to trial. Rowland, looking dapper yet somber in a dark pinstripe suit, said little during the 10-minute arraignment hearing, other than, "Yes, Your Honor," to questions posed by Judge Ellen Bree Burns. Judge Burns is known to some in the legal community as third-degree Burns, due to her tough sentencing if a defendant is convicted after trial. It is rumored that Rowland turned down a plea deal that would have called for 18 months of incarceration. If he really goes to trial and he gets convicted on any of those 7 charges, his likely sentence will be much more than the 18 months that was allegedly offered. Judge Burns, whose appointment is a lifetime appointment, is aged 90, and she's seen a lot of trials. Outside the courthouse after the hearing, while his client was silently being whisked away through a side courthouse door, Attorney Reed Weingarten said that one set of allegations were bogus and that the remaining set could not apply to Rowland, but rather should be applied to Lisa Wilson Foley. The reason for a lengthy prison stay, if convicted, is that Rowland previously served 10 months on political corruption charges back in 2006, something that Judge Burns is well aware of. Last Wednesday, the state Republican Party held a huge fundraiser, headlined by possible presidential contender former Governor Jeb Bush. Several folks besides Bush spoke at the gala event, and all of the speakers spoke for the need of party unity, saying nothing about another former governor, John Rowland. This was striking in large part because while the gala was happening, the Rowland indictment was breaking news. On Friday, 5 of the 6 Republican contenders for governor attended a debate, all while Rowland was being arraigned. Conspicuously missing from the debate was former Ambassador Tom Foley. Again, there was a concerted effort by the candidates to distance themselves from Rowland. Later Friday, the fundraising efforts for the gubernatorial candidates was released. Malloy did not have to file, having only just recently announced. In order to qualify for public financing, a candidate has to raise $250,000 in small, $100 is small, donations from 2,500 individuals. Senator McKinney has raised $178,561 from 2,033 donors. He's almost there. Foley has raised $131,000 in small donations. Shelton Mayor Mark Loretti has raised $109,325 from 1,353 donors. Mayor Mark Boughton of Danbury claims that he has raised $121,089 from 1,577 donors. However, that is including totals from his running mate, Heather Summers of Groton, who raised $56,000 from 667 donors. Joe Visconti has raised $8,700, while Martha Dean has raised $7,900, but she also has only recently announced. Tom Foley was not in the debate, in part because of his campaigning efforts for candidate Tammy Zawitowski. Zawitowski beat Peter Hill for the 61st House District. Legislation against the knockout game, where an individual knocks out a complete stranger, passed the Joint Judiciary Committee by a vote of 31 to 10, despite there being laws against assaults already on the books. And finally, the city of Hartford celebrated this last Sunday with both the UConn men's and women's basketball teams as they showed off their NCAA tournament championship trophies to over 200,000 delirious fans. Congratulations, UConn, for being the only Division I school to have both the men's and women's championships in the same year, twice. The first time was in 2001. Well, that's the Connecticut Serious and or Silly 6 news for tonight. I'm Dave Moore, and I thank you for joining me on the 123rd edition of News Talk Tonight on onthehorn.com. The show has been brought to you by Amazon.com, Sanders Travel, Sherpa Technologies, Budwitz and Meyer Jack CPAs, Deepwater Seafood of Avon, and CentralCTDental.com. Please also remember to tune in tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. for the Black Eyed and Blue Show, hosted by the team of Brian Lee and the ever-irrepressible Brian Parker. Join me again next Tuesday for another edition of News Talk Tonight. And remember, even though it is snowing and sleeting outside right now, it's still spring. See you next week.
Guys who had to choose between online radio or underwater pole vaulting.
I don't understand what's going on here.
It was an easy choice.
Oh, yeah.
On the Horn.
onthehorn.com.